Hello, this is Toyo Shimbi, founder of Business Leaders Coach, and welcome to the Business Leaders Coach podcast, episode 25. Today we are going to be looking at the infinite game, and I'm going to be sharing 5 key questions that you can ask to craft your vision. But on this podcast, we educate, equip, enable, and empower you to be the leader that you've been called to be. And yes, it has been a long time since our last episode, and a lot has happened since. I am now focused on Business Leaders Coach full time, and I'm very excited around how we can serve you. Now, I am recording this on YouTube, so if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. And as mentioned in the small release, that we are back and I have a lot to share with you. Obviously, a lot has happened since the pandemic, and businesses are a critical time where, especially small, medium-sized businesses. But what you're going to find is that many of the things that I predicted in episode 23 and 24 were true. They did come true, or they are revealing themselves to be true. If you remember, the 5 mindset shifts to become a 21st century leader and working skills needed for the 21st century are still very true. So in relaunching the podcast, I was thinking, where should I start? And how do we come out of this pandemic stronger? How do we not get ourselves, sort of really all tied up? I mean, it's obvious now that we are in a VUCA world. It's now here for real, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And so I picked up Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, and reread it and thought, well, I believe that we all need to start here. We need to look at what some of the things that he said, which I think are so important. So if you are a business owner, if you're a manager, if you're a team leader, I'm going to share with you 5 simple questions that you need to ask. And the key overall question is, are you playing the infinite game or the finite game? And these 5 questions are going to help you craft your vision. One of the things that gets asked a lot is, how do I craft my vision? How do I even know what a vision is? And even Simon himself, in one of the interviews, he says a lot of these things get debated: mission, purpose, vision. And really, I mean, obviously they are important, but it's more about how we put them into practice. So on this episode, if you're listening or you're watching, I'm going to hopefully take what Simon has written and then craft it in a way. And I'm going to give you something that you can actually download and use for yourself and with your team. I'll mention that at the end of this podcast. And so, as we all know, there is a lot of talk about purpose, about vision, as I said, and about mission. But is there a way of assessing, and can I ask myself, have I got this right? So before going into this, let me give you a quote that I read. And when I read this, I've just never forgotten about it. And it's actually from another author who I really learned a lot from when I was in learning and development, by Aubrey Daniels. And it's his book, Measure of a Leader. And this is what he wrote. And I want to start off here because he defines one of the key roles of a leader. And he said, leadership is all about making mundane behaviors directed at the mission, the vision, and the values more valuable in the sight of the followers. And what he was saying was that what this means is that part of the leader's role is to help a contributor find meaning and purpose in every task they do. Now, I'm sure many of you are maybe agreeing and shaking your head saying, absolutely, yes, that's true. But then there's a question, you see. What if there is no mission? What if there is no vision? What if if there aren't no values to point to direct to? And that's the reason why this episode is so important, because from my knowledge, from my own experience, from sharing, yes, we have something on the wall. Yes, we say, I think almost every business now almost sees it as, well, we got to have a vision. We got to have some values, ever since Jim Collins and Good to Great. But I think I'm challenged, and even just going through this has helped me to tweak my vision for Business Leaders Coach, and I'll be sharing some of that with you as we go along. And so with this in mind, I thought as we build our businesses, our teams, our organizations, that we have to have clarity around what we are trying to achieve. And so Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, can definitely help. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I think I will be breaking it down in my membership site. But first, I think it's really important to get that first part that he talks about. Now, if you haven't read the book, Simon gives us an understanding that what many of us have been doing with our goals and objectives is that we've been playing what he calls the finite game. We might say, for instance, that we want to become $1 billion company, or we want to increase our share price, or we want to scale to X number of staff. And what he advocates is that companies need a just cause. And these 5 areas, I'm turning them into questions. And actually, there are more than 5, but the overall is that you'll find out that there are 5 categories. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my L&D, my learn and development hat on, and help you craft some questions that we can start to ask to really cross-check that is this actually a just cause. And that's, by the way, Simon uses just cause, but he's really talking about a vision. But he talks about when it's just, there's some kind of ethical reasoning behind it, rather than just being a vision. And so I'm going to give you access to a one-pager that I've created that you'll be able to download. It's in PDF. And maybe you can go through it, take your team through it. And I think it is the starting point for any business, but especially coming out of this pandemic. If you really want to survive all the ups and downs in this VUCA world, I think that this would really help. So the first criteria of this just cause is standing for something. And the question is, does what we do stand for something positive and optimistic? And as you ask yourself that question, there's some follow-on questions that I think you can ask, which is, what is it? If you answer that question, does what we do stand for something positive and optimistic, then sometimes you have to push yourself to really articulate. And so what is it? Can we articulate what we stand for? And if you do this for yourself and you do this for your team, I think you really get value. What good are you contributing to through your service or product? Now, don't focus on the product or the service. Focus on what actually is it achieving for your customers, for instance. I think that will really help if you're able to articulate that, right? So for Business Leaders Coach, we want to help contribute to helping you become a better leader. And so that's the end goal, which is that our just cause is that we want to see in our world leaders leading well, confident, competent leaders that are leading their businesses successfully and helping it to grow in the way that they want it to grow. Now, the second question then is on inclusion. And the question is, can everyone in the organization contribute towards this cause? Can everyone in the organization contribute towards this cause? And how will you know? How would you know that everybody can? Now, I think the reason for this one is because sometimes the overall vision or purpose or whatever might be articulated, for instance, if it is to make more money or to be more profitable or to grow, then sometimes there's so much emphasis, for instance, on sales. And what you then get is you get this distinction between those who are part of the sales team that are actually bringing in that money. And then there's the other departments that are called the services, that are sort of seen as the back end and the connection, because they aren't actually the ones physically engaged with the customers that bring in the money. Then they don't necessarily feel like it's inclusive. And so this is the reason why, as you craft your vision, that it has to incorporate inclusive. Everybody has to feel like, yes, as I am doing this, it is helping with the bigger picture. And that's the reason why we've got to be careful with what we select as the bigger picture. And obviously part of leadership is to help people connect the dots. Now, even though anybody who has been under my training knows that I love to share the story of the janitor for NASA, and many of you perhaps know this story of the janitor who apparently, I don't know if it's a true story, but JF Kennedy goes to NASA, sees a guy sweeping and says, "What are you doing?" And the guy says, "I'm placing a man on the moon." Now, funny enough, even in the book, Simon himself says that, this whole moon mission, isn't really a just cause, because there was something behind that. But I'm sure we get the idea behind contributing towards the bigger picture. So it will still serve its purpose in that sense. And I think that's important, that whatever this just cause is, or this vision is, everybody should be able to feel like they're playing a role, no matter what job responsibility they have overall in the organization. So that's the second. So we've got so far standing for something, and then the second is inclusion. Now the third is a question on service. And the question is, who is the primary beneficiary? Who is the primary beneficiary? Now with this one, let me just park here, because this is one that when I have facilitated teams, I notice that people sometimes struggle. Some will say, well, it's the company that I work for that benefits because our goal is to make X amount of profit or revenue. And so can you see that, unfortunately, that doesn't really make it a just cause. So to have statements that are communicated by the organization in a way that makes the individual, the employee, feel like what they're doing, the focus is on profit or shareholder value, means that the primary beneficiaries are these people mentioned. Now, obviously, a business needs to make profit. A business should be increasing its share price if it's doing well. These things are absolutely important, right? But according to this criteria, the primary beneficiary should not be the contributor. It should be the people that they are serving. And so therefore, in a business, it should be the customer. And as I was, writing this, I thought of Google. And I thought, wow, isn't it interesting? They created a platform where we can all search for free. They made it completely free. And what they did was that they served us first. And then we benefited, and now they're worth billions. So the question that we can ask ourselves is, how do our customers benefit from our service? How do our customers benefit from our service? And then another question that I really think, if you can actually push yourself to ask these next few questions, please pay attention. You find out that you can really gain a lot of market share. And the question is, are some of our potential customers benefiting even before money is exchanged? And if not, how can we create that dynamic where our potential customers benefit from us first before they exchange money for more value? Now, if you are able to brainstorm that, I think that you are beginning to shift your company into a 21st century company. Because if you were to look at many of the companies that are really gaining, traction today, they figured out how to benefit the customer before money is exchanged. They've offered something that's of value, and then the rest is simply, I want to become loyal to your brand. The fourth question is on resilience. And the question is what you do able to endure political, technological, and cultural change? Now, the reason why this is an important question is because, when you focus so much on what we currently have or what you currently have, you leave yourself vulnerable to sudden changes in these areas mentioned. So, for instance, if you focus so much on the technology you currently have, in that time, it obviously makes sense, whether it's artificial intelligence or whatever it is, But what a lot of companies don't see is that, in the next few years, that technology might be outdated. So you got to be careful how you craft your cause or your vision, not holding on to technology, because that's obviously going to move. And it will be the same with political, or it will be the same with, just the whole cultural idea as well, which is that if you're holding so much to the current theme of things, that you might be missing out. So you've really got to push through and ask yourself that question, which is that, is what you do able to endure political, technological, and cultural change, right? And so this is partly, again, the reason why the first question that you ask is really important, that you have to think it through. Are we standing for something? Because at the end of the day, the one thing that is not going to change is that if it is touching people's lives in one way or the other, that's the thing that you can guarantee on. For instance, think about Starbucks. Right? Starbucks' mission, their mission statement is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighbor at a time. And when you think about what was just said there, they didn't even mention coffee at all. And they've been able to craft a mission statement, an idea of what they're trying to achieve that touches people. And those things most likely will always be around, one person, one cup, a neighborhood. And what they're trying to do is to inspire and nurture the human spirit. So they can actually evolve into a different kind of business and still keep that. And that's the kind of way we've got to be thinking when you're playing this infinite game. So for Business Leaders Coach, as an example, helping you be the best leader is always going to be something every generation is going to work through. And I think having that kind of mindset of how can what we're doing transcend to perhaps even other generations, I think that that's a good way of being able to ask ourselves, are we resilient to these things that might change, for instance? Now, the final and the fifth question is that around being idealistic, and it's being big, being bold, having something that is actually unachievable, having an unachievable objective. And the question is, and I've crafted the question this way, and it is going to help with this whole idea of vision. And the question is, imagine what the world will look like when you have accomplished your cause. Imagine what the world will look like when you have accomplished your cause. Now, this question helps in many ways. Again, putting on my learning and development hat, because it actually helps you paint the picture, the ideal picture. And when it comes to vision, this is the one thing that the quick test of any vision statement is, can I imagine this? Can I actually imagine this happening? Is this a scene? Being able to articulate your vision is important. It impresses the image of what you're striving for. And this means that people can begin to see this in their own minds. Now, remember, it's unachievable. So it is an utopia, idealistic vision, but at least it gives you something that you're striving for. So for instance, with Business Leaders Coach, it's to see every leader of a small, medium-sized company leading their companies with confidence and with humility. However, if I craft it in a way where we can see it, I would use perhaps a different way of expressing this and say, I imagine a day when a worker comes home and is seated around the table with their friends or with their family, and they're sharing about how you made a difference to their life. Or I can say how you encourage them to be the best version of themselves. And through you, and this is something that is now happening everywhere, I imagine a world where every worker is experiencing great leadership from their leaders in their company. You see, this is the kind of way that we can craft a vision where people can begin to see this and articulate this. And one of the things that's really important is that with a vision, you've got to be able to feel the emotion. So we might even go as far as saying that sitting around the dining table, don't we all know that we share about our experiences of leadership, whether it's good leadership or whether it's bad leadership. And what we want to see is where people are sharing about their own experiences of good leadership in their companies. That's something that we can at least visualize, even though, unfortunately, it might never be achieved in every situation. So, as I wrap up, are you playing the infinite game? Do you have a just cause? I definitely highly recommend that you read or listen to the book. I hope to have Simon himself on the show to help us with some questions. And I hope, at some point we'll have him, and we'll have many authors on this show, for us all to learn together. And if you are listening to this and you want a copy of the questions, go to businessleaderscoach.com/the infinite game, and you can download the PDF. It's a one page with the questions that I've walked you through. I would recommend you do this for yourself, do this with your team, and why not share with me on the experience, on how this perhaps has helped you to craft your vision. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode. There's more exciting things that are coming as we are building a community of learners. And if you have any questions, email me at toye@businessleaderscoach.com. You can also check out our free webinar. As at time of recording this, I am running a webinar on managing remote teams. I'm going to be sharing 5 essential skills that every manager needs to have in order to be able to lead their people in today's new economy. You can go to businessleaderscoach.com, click on the link and sign up, or you can email me if you want access to the replay. For now, till next time, this is Toye signing off. Take care.